It was a Saturday afternoon in the summer of 1990 in the forested northern edges of New Jersey. 27-year-old Lisa McBride would chat with her parents on the phone and then join 3 friends to drive to a Clint Black concert in New York City at the Beacon Theater. Lisa was an avid hiker and a lively executive secretary at Lakeland Savings Bank in Sussex County, New Jersey. She attended West Milford High School, where she graduated in 1981 before taking classes at Rider College in Lawrenceville. She had a wide circle of friends and owned her home in Highland Lakes, which she painted and landscaped herself, and where she lived alone with her 2 cats. She was an amateur competitive shooter who regularly called her parents just to talk and practiced ballet with the same passion that she taught it to children. As a teenager, she was a member of New Generation Dancers in Wanacue, an 8-girl troupe that performed ballet, tap, jazz, and modern dances. At 16, she performed with them in Romania. She hoped to open her own studio one day. It was around 70 degrees with a cool breeze as Lisa and her friends crossed back into Sussex County driving back home from the concert. They stopped at Big John's pub in West Milford before her friends dropped Lisa off at her home on Glen Road, a winding, knotted community of mountain lake houses, navigate-able by only those who've lived there. A neighbor saw Lisa entering her home and locking the door sometime between 1:45 and 2 a.m. in the morning. When Lisa didn't show up for her 9 a.m. shift at Lakeland Bank the next day, her co-workers were flummoxed. She hadn't missed a day of work in 3 years. They called her home in Highland Lakes, and when no one answered, they called her family. Norma, Lisa's mother, got the call and then phoned the police. When the police arrived at Lisa's house, they didn't find Lisa, and they didn't find her bed sheets, comforter, black purse, and keychain either. Norma stated that there were signs of trouble inside the house where things had been strewn about. There were no signs of forced entry at the house, though we know Lisa did keep a key hidden outside. However, when her brother Douglas showed up that morning to work on her gas range, the key was still there. A few newspapers report that the telephone lines had been cut, but it's unclear who found them this way, her brother Douglas or the police, and if it was publicly confirmed. At this point, the police had determined that it was an involuntary disappearance and that she didn't leave her home willingly. Richard Honig, Sussex County prosecutor and head of the task force assembled to search for Lisa McBride, moved from his county office to Vernon Police Station, where they set up makeshift headquarters in a trailer on the property. The special task force was 17 members strong, and when the massive round-the-clock search started, even the FBI took interest. They were looking for a 5 feet 7 inches, 135 pounds woman with long brown hair. Lisa was just 27. We don't have a suspect at this point, but it may turn out that we probably have already interviewed the guilty person or persons and don't know it yet, Richard Honig said. I believe we will eventually find the answers. The search for Lisa held no punches. Overhead, helicopters with infrared beams searched hundreds of miles of New Jersey woods, and dogs covered the same acreage below on the ground. Police would go on to investigate over 750 leads and interview over 300 people, both in person and by phone. 20 psychics offered tips. More than $150,000 in reward money was offered for information, and the NRA, of which Lisa was an active member, swooped in to assist in the search, hoping they could find clues of her disappearance with hunting season around the corner. Norma gave them flyers too and asked the NRA to join the search. Lisa's father, George, had a plastic company, the company that printed the flyers. Those flyers ended up all over northern New Jersey as community members posted them on poles and traffic lights all across the area, in storefronts, and at the Sussex County Farm and Horse Showgrounds where they knew big events would bring in big crowds. George posted $100,000 for her safe return, and another $10,000 to the person who found her remains. It's been published that it seems that the killer had considerable local knowledge, since there are only a few ways in and out of the community, and it is not an easy area to drive to begin with. Her body was also found 30 miles away, close to the border of PA in a secluded area. The newspapers and TV reporters were broadcasting the disappearance all over North Jersey. NBC TV ran a segment on Lisa in Missing Reward. Roger F. Iverson, the NRA director at the time, said, "We will walk shoulder to shoulder through the forest. We will climb every mountain and pray Lisa is not there." Iverson printed information about her disappearance in sports and hunting magazines all across the country, asking for hunters, trappers, and hikers to keep a lookout. The coalition of NJ sportsmen also committed to help in the search, led by the chairman Richard Miller. The Sierra Club also said they'd lend assistance. The volunteers were set up to search the 30,000-acre Waywayanda State Park, as well as Canister Road in Vernon on Sunday, October 20, 1990, with a rain date set for October 28. The search territory included parts of the Newark watershed. They were told to look for the remains of a human body, but the search never happened. Early on Saturday morning, October 20, 1990, just before the big search for Lisa was supposed to begin, Lisa's remains were found off of Old Mine Road in Sandyston Township, NJ. She was found by a hunter about 50 yards into the dense woods, unclothed and mostly decomposed, laying on top of brush at the base of a cherry tree. The hunter from Montague that happened upon the body was reported as a grouse hunter or a bird watcher, but his identity has never been revealed. He summoned a park ranger and ultimately received a $10,000 reward for finding Lisa's remains. The area where she was found is a secluded section of woods of the Delaware Water Gap, less than 2 miles from the Dingman's Ferry Bridge, which leads from New Jersey to Pennsylvania. The New Jersey State Police, Vernon Township Police, and investigators from the prosecutor's office searched the area of discovery. They combed the site and the roadside with a metal detector, but no details were released about the findings. Richard Honig said they recovered new evidence where her body was found and were examining it for clues, but he didn't share more. Richard Miller called off his search crew, which included dozens of gun clubs, sporting clubs, ham radio clubs, community groups, and the Red Cross. Richard Honig, SGT Michael Buono, and Virgil Rome went to the McBride's home to break the news to the family. Lisa's remains were transported to the medical examiner's office in Newark, New Jersey. She was identified through dental records, but determining the cause of death was difficult due to the condition of her remains. An autopsy and anthropological tests were conducted. It was now also confirmed a homicide, and they said they had additional information for leads. A year later, her house was still sealed off as a crime scene. And today, there has been no cause of death released. Though her death certificate states she died from external violence, there have never been any arrests made in the case. Virgil Rome said the 3 friends Lisa went with to the concert with have been cleared, although their identities have never been publicly released. A main suspect in the case was a man who had been unsuccessfully trying to court Lisa by asking her on dates, showing up at the bank where she worked, waiting in the parking lot for her, and even leaving flowers on her car. Lisa told friends she was being followed by the man, and that he'd shown up to see her at Big John's pub, too. The stalker was a major focus in the beginning. For more than a year, the police couldn't find him, and no one remembered the man's name. But one day in 1992, Norma was shuffling through things in Lisa's room and happened across a license plate number that Lisa's friend had scrawled down. It turns out it was the license plate belonging to the man who had tried to ask Lisa out 6 months before the murder, the stalker. When investigators finally tracked him down to talk to him, he was living out west and was able to satisfy investigators with his alibi, ultimately proving he was also out west on June 23, 1990, the day Lisa had disappeared. He was also forthcoming about trying to get dates with Lisa. John T., the owner of Big John's pub where Lisa and her friends had stopped after the concert, said he thought the killer had been interviewed but wasn't optimistic that the killer would be caught. He said that the authorities knew a lot more than what they were saying. The site Lisa was found was about an hour's drive from her house, in an area that is heavily hunted during squirrel and grouse season, which began October 13th. The authorities said that the area had not been checked in the previous searches. On October 20th, 1990, the Daily Record printed Lisa's obituary. Her funeral was at Restland Memorial Park Chapel in East Hanover. New Jersey the following month on November 12th. The chapel, a replica of an 11th century English church, was visited by close to 200 mourners. Reverend John F. Dow, who baptized Lisa, read the Gospel from John and Psalm 23. An organ played a rendition of one of Lisa's favorite songs, Memory, from the musical Cats. She was buried in a cherrywood casket next to her grandfather, Albert Trinder, in the family plot. Lisa McBride was the daughter of George E. and Norma M. Trinder of Newton, New Jersey. She was the sister of Douglas of Vernon, New Jersey. She was the godmother of Rebecca Lynn. A scholarship fund was created in Lisa's honor, the Lisa Marie McBride Memorial Fund, which is in the care of the local Vernon Police Athletic League PAL. Circumstances suggest that Lisa was killed at her Glen Road home in Highland Lakes. She didn't have a steady boyfriend. Authorities have said multiple times that they believe they already interviewed the killer, and that they may have been in Lisa's circle of acquaintances. Norma has said she thinks it had to be someone she knew. Most of Lisa's loved ones remembered her for her laughter. They said it was infectious. She would call up her bank friend, a date at the time, Roy Jr., to tell him the Pee Wee Herman word of the day on Saturdays. Linda Fredrickson, a family friend, said, "It was hard to get a decent picture of her because she was always making faces or doing something to make us laugh. Lisa had a way of downplaying the stressful days and make us smile," one of her co-workers wrote. Many of the Vernon police officers involved in the investigation knew her from dancing lessons she gave to the officers' children. Everyone recalls her as independent, down-to-earth, active, fun, and popular. Every year at holiday time, Lisa's friends climbed to the top of Canous MTN to erect an enormous star. From the last article I read, it had been going on for 15 years strong. You can see it driving north on RT-23, heading towards Echo Lake Road. The batteries needed to be changed every day. It required a 25-minute climb up a rock peak to reach. Lisa had once joked that she wanted a decorated Christmas tree up there, and that they could just, run extension cords from her friend Jimmy's house on Union Valley Road to make it happen. Norma and George said they prefer to go to the cemetery to visit Lisa in June, when it's full of life, instead of October when it's dead and dying. Today is October 20th, 2024, and it's been 34 years since Lisa's body was found in that cold October that was dead and dying. But she is not forgotten, and we will keep her light aflame. I've got an eye out for justice for Lisa.